This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Ahoy! Captain David Gallimore welcomes you aboard the Regenerate Show, live Mondays, 10 a.m. Pacific on K4HD Radio at k4hd.com. We dive into the real messy work of transforming our lives, leadership, and organizations. Bring your hot mess and confusion. Leave with clarity, courage, and confidence. Together, let's strengthen our resilience, accelerating the health of ourselves, people, planet, and profits. Now, here's your host, Captain Dave, your personal regenerator. All aboard!
Ahoy! Welcome, friends, to Regenerate. I'm Captain Dave, your personal regenerator, and during this show, I strive to create a safe space for guests and yourself to share authentic and vulnerable, true stories about the messy middle of personal, professional, and organizational transformation. You know, I think these stories are so needed right now. We've got more than enough fake news. We've got enough performative acting, especially on podcasts where people say, hey, just follow my formula and you've got it all figured out. And you too could be happier, healthier, wealthier, even a billionaire. But the point about regeneration is to bring resilience. During these challenging times, a lot of change, a lot of uncertainty, this is an opportunity for us to learn to adapt. So the secret to regeneration, I believe, is learning from people who are living it. In the mud, fingernails getting dirty, in the messy middle. So the reason why I created Regenerate is because I'm dedicated to lifting purpose-driven leaders up, and especially next generation leaders such as yourselves. And I act as a transformational guide outside of this Regenerate show and just love serving people. I invite you to share this show if anything resonates with you. Invite you to be a teacher, because when you teach something, you definitely have to learn it a little bit better. I have always enjoyed learning and then teaching others, so it really sinks in. And I'm very open to your suggestions to improve the show. This is show number 17, yay. And I'm super excited to be welcoming a dear colleague who helped me overcome a lot of inertia and challenge, my own pivot, Dean K. Piper, CST, AKA the Pipeman. And our theme this week is pivots of the Pipeman. So what if everything you've ever been is exactly who you were meant to become? Society, I know this was true for me, said, hey, work hard, get good grades, get into a good college, get a good job, pick a lane, work for 45 years, get the gold watch. But the Pipeman says, mess up the plan, pivot towards how you were meant to live. I'm telling you, at 64, that is absolutely my experience for a healthier, wealthier, and happier life. So who is Dean? He's a metalhead, he's a punk rocker, a hippie, and a global professional businessman. He's lived multiple lifetimes in one. He's lived multiple identities. Hopefully he will bring just one or two of those identities. Otherwise, it's going to be a challenge for Dave to keep up. He's now a media visionary, and he's built a global empire that reaches millions across the world through the Talk4 Media brand. So in this episode of Regenerate, Dean and I are going to be exploring the messy, courageous, and ultimately liberating journey of radical reinvention, where the multiple facets of your personality are your greatest gift to the world. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dean K. Piper, the Pipeman.
Hello, ahoy, Captain Dave. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. And yourself?
Oh, I'm right near the water, so I might be doing better than you right now.
Well, I'm envious. I'm in a hotel. We just sold our home, and so I'm a nomad. By the way, future's so bright. Got to wear shades. I love the blue sunglasses. You're kind of channeling a little John Lennon, I think.
Well, actually, okay, it has become my trademark. I don't know if you saw, but my hair used to be blue. It's blue in my logo, and so I always would match my clothes and my sunglasses to my hair, and ergo are these sunglasses, which I used to call my John Lennon glasses, but they're now in honor of the Prince of Darkness. They are my Ozzy glasses because they do look much more like Ozzy glasses, especially the color. So here they are. And I have to say, too, that I have a question for you first. Before you interview me, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
So when most people that are Oreo fanatics eat Oreos, where do they start?
You pull it apart and you eat the middle because life is short.
So what you're saying is they start on a cookie with the messy middle. So why not start with themselves in the messy middle?
Dude, profound right there. We can stop now. Our work is done.
I thought about that during the intro when I was listening to the intro. I'm going, well, I'm going to start off and saying, hey, I recognize that dude talking before the show. But then it just came to me. And that's the best advice I could give anybody for being a guest on a show, a host on a show, is that just let it take a life of its own and have conversations, and whatever comes into your head. You know, you talked about all the different, I'll call them personalities. Okay. And the chances are they might all come and visit on the show. You never know. But the thing is, they're all us, you know, like, why do we like to, put ourselves in a box, or let society put us in a box? Or why do we like to section off our lives? And speaking of messy middles, that comes to my philosophy on midlife crisis, because it's just like what I'm talking about. And, why is everything a crisis? That's the first problem. Not everything's a crisis. And what is disguised as a crisis could be a blessing indeed. Yeah. And I think we have to focus on that. So, but now I'll let you take control back of the show. But if you want to know about my philosophy on midlife crisis, that'll be up to you.
There you go. No, I think we're going to get into that. But I wanted to give our listeners just a little bit of an opportunity to go a bit deeper with you. And so my first question is, what do you absolutely love to do for fun? What just lights you up, Dean?
Living. That's the simplest answer people should give. Living life to the fullest. Now, I could also give you my laundry list, which I will, but here's a funny story that you brought that question up of all questions. Because yes, the Pipeman is on dating sites, and yes, that is a mess in and of itself. But I had somebody that matched with me on a dating site this morning. And so I asked a question that I ask a lot of people, similar to yours. What are your hobbies? What are your passions? What music do you love the most, and what music do you not like? And there's a reason the last one, because I think there's got to be compatibility when it comes to music, because, different genres may not match in a made in heaven, especially when you're the Pipeman and you go on tour. Like I'm going back out. I came home from tour to do this interview, and then I'm going back out in a couple days to do media coverage at music festivals. So of course, it's a big passion of mine. To answer your question, music's one of my biggest passions. Life and live music is a big passion of mine. Festivals, theme parks, events, things like that, going out there in the wild, getting off these devices, going out there in the wild and experiencing life and meeting new people and experiencing new things. That's a big passion of mine. But I asked this woman these questions, And her response to me really kind of annoyed me in a way, I'll even say.
Yeah.
Because A, it was such a generic response. B, you know, a lot of men say things about women, and women say things about men. Yet I think both parties do the things they're talking about the other person. This proves it, because I've seen a lot of women talk about, especially on TikTok and stuff, men nowadays, you need to make some effort. Step up to the plate, make an effort, blah, blah, blah. So this woman answers me with, I love a lot of things. And what was the other part of the answer? It was so generic. It was, I love a lot of things, and I love a lot of music. That was not the answer to the question.
No.
That was not the answer to the question. And even I went further. I'm like, well, great. So does everybody else in the world. Can you give me some ideas of some specifics so we can see if we're compatible?
Right.
Still refused to answer, and to me, that's like A, no effort, B, being lazy, C, a lack of communication skills. I'm big on communication skills, because listen, you want to get to know somebody, and I did say this back, if you want to get to know somebody, these are things you want to know, not some generic, oh, that's what she said, that she said too. She said something like it was a big, long list that it basically alluded to she wasn't going to make the effort to type that. Okay. And so I'm not going to make the effort to communicate with you. Bye. That's my viewpoint. Okay. So the thing is that, to answer your question, living life to the fullest is the best answer anybody could give, because we only have one life. We don't know how much time we have. We could be gone after this show, for God's sakes. So I am a serious, do everything, anything. I will try anything. If I like it, I'll do it more. Now, the simple answer to your question, the laundry list, is there's a slew of things, including this. Being on the radio, being on a podcast is a big passion of mine. Being a speaker, helping people, inspiring people, helping people to live life to their fullest. Those are huge passions of mine. Then there's, of course, music, as we mentioned. I mentioned, theme parks, events, also skateboarding, paddleboarding, surfing, virtually any water sport except for scuba and snorkeling. Scuba because I can't, because I had a lung collapse at 17. And so again, pivoting, I could sit there and go, oh, woe is me. Now I can't skydive and I can't scuba dive. Or I can say what W. Mitchell said. Now there's 1,000 things I still can do. Right. If anybody knows who W. Mitchell is, he is one of the greatest motivational speakers that Tony Robbins speaks about a lot, who had not one but 2 accidents in his life that he should have died and did not, but he did end up his body 90% burned and a quadriplegic. And his mantra is, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with it.
Yeah, such true statements there. So my second question, and I was going to read a number of things that I had learned about you, but I thought it'd be best from your lips. And the question is, before you became a global media host and event host and musician and father. And
not a musician. I'm just a radio person. Okay. I just go to, I suck at it. I've played drums. I've played guitar. I've sang thrash. I suck at them all. So I do this.
Okay. All right. Thanks for clarifying that. But before all of those adventures, the financial planner, the theater stuff that you did, tell us a little bit about how you became who you are. What is your origin story?
Well, my parents met at a restaurant. That's the origin story, I guess. No, all kidding aside, though, seriously, that is your origin story, and you have a blank slate, but then you have plenty of blank slates in your life. I'm of the opinion. Okay. So
Well,
like
you were a kid, sorry to interrupt, but when you were a kid, was there something that happened to you that defined some of that personality that you are, that
all of it,
person?
all of it, all of it. And I think that's true of anybody.
Yeah.
And that could come out different ways. Okay. When I say all of it, means it could be good, it could be bad, it could be perceived as good or bad. There's things in my life that others would perceive as bad, and they were bad, but I perceive them as good because it's what you get out of it. It's not what happens, it's what you get out of it. So as a kid, one of the things that I didn't like about my mother most of all is I was like, I had no child life as a young kid. It was, basically like in the Cub Scouts, I was the highest decorated Cub Scouts in history 2 years in a row. Why? Because that Cub Scout handbook was meant and was treated as homework, not as a fun thing. So it was like my mother made me do every single thing in that book. Now, could that be perceived as bad? It could be. And there are a lot of things that my mother did that I do perceive as bad. But that one I perceive now as, well, that made me, and some could consider it bad, but, that made me the knowledge junkie that I am. It made me the super researcher that I am. It makes me the workaholic that I am. It makes me the overachiever that I am. It makes me as ambitious as I am, as persistent as I am, and as persevering as I am. So take it for what you will. Some can listen. My kids, well, not all of them. The youngest one, she's all into she's a Gen Zer, so she's into all the, stuff that's popular nowadays that maybe wasn't popular for Gen X kids like us. And she made a statement one time. I was talking about something, and she's like, "Yeah, Dad, you have to work on that trauma." I'm like, "Did you not hear how I was saying what I was saying? It's not everything's trauma. It wasn't trauma. It was, I wear it as a badge of honor." And that is a choice, which brings me to what I was going to say before about the different times and different pivot points. When I turned 18, as a person that had a very tumultuous childhood, as most people do, as a child of two high-functioning, high-class addicts, as somebody that raised myself since I'm 11, as somebody that lived on the street sleeping on park benches at 15, I said something to myself at 18 that nobody had to tell me to say, and most people don't say. And that's especially the people that love to live in trauma. Now that I'm 18, I'm in control of my life, and anything I do up after this point that screws up my life is on me, not on my childhood, not on any trauma or anything. It's on me, because I can tell the difference between good and bad, right and wrong, without having a perfect childhood. And, like I see a big peeve of mine is I see these serial killers that, listen, be nice if I could think like them. It'd be a lot easier. But these serial killers that get interviewed and they're like, yeah, the reason they did all those heinous things is their childhood. Blame, 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 victim, 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 victim. No, wrong. Okay. I 1,000,000% disagree with that, because you can get your role models from anywhere. You can get your influences from anywhere. You can get your inspirations from anywhere. And I chose not to use the negativity of childhood. I chose to use things like positive motivational stuff, self-help stuff, coping skills. What a concept. Coping skills. Like, people embrace certain things nowadays they don't need to embrace, because if they had coping skills, they wouldn't have those things going on. Just my opinion and my experience as well. So the bottom line is, I was somebody, and you listen, thing one, that's why I refer to on the radio as my first wife. She used to make fun of me because I used role models. They don't have to be real life people either, by the way. I used Leave It to Beaver and Brady Bunch as my role models of what family should be like. Okay. That's number one. Number two, I used people like Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar as examples, especially Tony Robbins, because he was somebody like me that was down and out and crawled out from the depths of hell to become super successful. And I say to those people out there, and then I'll have to cut myself off or else I'll hijack the whole show. But I say to those people out there that are, struggling or going through a lot right now, because the world is a screwed up place right now. People are screwed up right now. The energy is screwed up right now, but you have the choice. You have the choice to make the difference in what I consider right now is the messy middle of our existence, because everything's a roller coaster in life. And if you think about it, last century we had a pandemic. The same time we had a pandemic this century. Last century we had what was called the Roaring '20s, which is what has been called this century. Last century we also had the Great Depression. Unfortunately, could be heading that way. However, after that, we had the great boom again. So everything goes in cycles and everything changes. And now more than ever with technology, and that's why it's more than ever, don't worry about your past in negative ways. Pivot and live life to the fullest in every single way. Now I'll shut up.
Well, there's so many threads that I'd like to pull. The first one that I think is so profound is you can't really know when you're 18, 28, 38, any of the eights, what's going to happen in the next 2 to 5 years. And so this idea of pivoting, following your heart and your head, I would say when I've made my best decisions in life, I brought those two brains, if I can call it that, the gut brain, the heart and gut to the head. Can you speak a little bit to when you first realized that, financial planning and some of the acting stuff that you did, and where you saw the opportunity, seeing around the corner of this pre-streaming, pre-podcasting world that you were really a pioneer in? How did you pick up on those signals? Because I think there's some lessons that we can learn from pioneers like yourself, given all of the disruption that's happening. There's opportunities to be a pioneer again in this current age. There's
always opportunities to be a pioneer. And all the things that I did weren't necessarily to bring me on a certain road. Some of them are just because you want to. Some of them you're just a knowledge junkie. Some of them you collect certifications and stuff like that, like baseball cards. Okay. And that's me for sure, but so the thing is okay, so there was an evolution. I've been a salesperson since I'm 11 years old. I used to be in the pool and spa business and basically mainly spas to begin with in Southern California, and did fairs and mall shows and events all over Southern California selling hot tubs, what we call spas. People like to call them hot tubs, but hot tubs are a specific type. And that was because my dad was in the business, which he's right behind me, right over here. That's him in the background on the 101 freeway, where he had this beautiful spa store and landscaped area with gazebos and spas that used to be just a dirt lot. And it beautified the town of what was then called Agoura, California. That became Agoura Hills, California. And everybody knows about Agoura Hills because they all know about the Kardashians that live in Calabasas right next door. But back then, he was fighting. That's what that article is about. He had to fight the city because he beautified an area, and they wanted him to take it all down and bring it back to nothing there. Now, 2026, I go there. and it's it's not only still a bunch of weeds and ugliness, but it's a whole auto mechanic center. So I guess that's better. I don't know. But so he's where I got my sales ability, some of my business abilities, some of the things not to do. But also the personality, the Pipeman personality for sure comes from him and from doing that carny type of life back then. It's funny because I look at some pictures from back then and I'm like, oh man, that's so me. Yeah, everybody should have everybody should have the advantage of doing a Ghost of Christmas Past to their past, and they'll find out 50 years later they're the same person. They're just evolved. Like, don't tell me you changed. Nobody changes, they evolve. Okay, every part of your life becomes a part of you, and that answers your question, because everything, even though not related, led me to where I am today. So that part, basically, now I go on tour and I do, media coverage at music festivals and at events. I do live broadcasts for the station. That stuff came from those days. Okay, now step forward a little bit. I go back to New Jersey to go to college. And while I'm going to college, I'm in the beginning of it, I'm managing this store called Harrow's in New Jersey. That's from Long Island. And there's like 8 stores, and it's a pool, spa, patio furniture, grills, all the summer stuff. During the summer and during the winter, it would be a Christmas store, which I'm a Jew. So people used to ask me, which tree? I don't care. I make $5 commission. Pick the tree that you want. But the pools and spas, okay? So I was in retail for 10 years, basically. And, that's also where I get work ethic from, because in retail, you have to have serious work ethic. You're working every holiday. You're working every weekend. You're working every night. You're working 16 hours a day. It's thankless most of the time. People are jerk-offs in retail stores, especially Christmas time. Right. People are not jolly at all. That is the myth of the century. Okay. Right. Just one quick story. There were these trim called Anna Lee dolls. They were so popular. They were collectors, and they would go out like right away in the store. And I used to witness women in a Christmas store for the jolliest time of the year playing tug of war, beating the crap out of each other because that last piece of Anna Lee trim. Okay. It's silly. And that brings me today. Look at how we're being today. It's the same thing. It hasn't gone away. So now I had a brother who worked for Prudential Insurance Company of America, the largest financial institution in the world, and at that time. And he kept trying to convince me to come over there. I was in my comfort zone, man. I was manager of this store. I could do whatever I want. I was in charge. I was with my friends there. I was making a decent living. Say that again?
You go surfing when the surf was up?
No, that never any surfing. I didn't have time. I was always at the store. Store's always open all the time. But it was more about being in a comfort zone, as most of us are in certain careers or something we've invested time in. You invest 10 years time in something, you don't want to leave it. Then you feel like that 10 years is a waste of time. Or you just are so comfortable that you can't bust out of that comfort zone, and you live that same life for the rest of your life. And some people do. Yeah. I don't know what the trigger was. I can't remember because it wasn't that significant. But at one point, I finally said, okay, let me check it out. And I went in for an interview, and that started my entry into the financial business. No great thing. I didn't have anything bad at work. I didn't have any bad reason. But, I was in a comfort zone. And I was, from 18 till like 21, I was making $30,000 a year in the late 80s. That
was good money.
That's a lot of money for a college student. And I was going to school full time at Rutgers, pulling 17 credits a semester and working 80 hours a week at the retail store. Yeah. And I was on mission. But then when I entered Prudential, I did step it up, but I had to step out of my comfort zone to do it. I left something I knew my whole working life, and that was supporting my college education because nobody was helping me. Listen, I lived on the streets. I brought myself off the streets. I paid my way through college by working 80 hours a week. Yeah. Okay.
Hey,
now,
Dean,
yes,
we're just going to pause that for a sec.
Pause it.
And we want to come back to the Prudential story and then to the story of Talk4 Media after this short break.
You're listening to Regenerate with Captain Dave, your personal regenerator on K4HD Radio. We'll be right back. Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you ready to regenerate and live the life of your dreams? Start the transformation now. Call Captain Dave at 253-237-2558. Stop overthinking. Again, call 253-237-2558 or go to regenerativeworldgroup.com to book a free, no obligation clarity call. Let's get back to Regenerate right here on K4HD Radio for more life-changing transformations. Here's your host, Captain Dave, your personal regenerator.
Welcome back. If you're just now joining us, my guest is Dean K. Piper, CST, aka the Pipeman, with the coolest shades ever. And we've been chatting a little bit about some pivots when he was a young laddie. Raised himself basically from
just a couple of years ago,
just a few years ago, right? You started when you were 12 and loved working in retail, although not so much the long hours, but learned how to deal with customers, both good, bad, and ugly, as well as, the sales skills and having experienced the buying side of your selling mastery, I would say you brought a lot of that, I suspect, into this next part of your story, which was the financial world. So you joined Prudential.
Yeah, and let me just say that we all bring everything and add more to our bag of tricks.
Right.
Like, some things you don't even know. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know why I ever had to take algebra. I never have to use that in life. Like, yes, you do. Every single day. You may not realize you are, but every single day you're using it. You're using geometry too. I love the people that say that because they're saying it while they're at a billiard bar shooting pool.
Right.
And they say, that was stupid. I had to take geometry. Hello, maybe that's why you stink in pool. But, back to our story is like, so I was only at Prudential for a year because I ended up the top agent out of 85 agents. I was making more than twice what I was in the other business. Working the same hours, though, really, because in any business, you reap what you sow, and you have to put the time in. The difference was in the retail business, that time at the store was also social time. And I think a lot of people do that. They steal their social time at work. And there's something to be said to have both, okay, and have them separate. I'm a total Libra. You need a little balance, even though I've been unbalanced. You need a little bit of balance, okay? And it can't just revolve around work, even if it is social and fun, okay? It's still work. It's like when people say certain things to me, and I just say to them, yeah, that when they say to me like, oh, I do it because, this is my fun. No, you don't, because if you weren't getting paid, there's probably something else like surfing you'd be doing, and so the point is, I want to tell people how much I was a workaholic, but not say that it's a great thing. It's partially a good thing. It's partially a good thing if you are living life to the fullest. I do want to add that. So, but what happened to me was, when you're that young and you're making that kind of money, your friends really can't hang out with you or do the things you want to do. And back then, unlike now, the credit card companies, they're just throwing credit cards at anybody. So I was 21 years old. I had 35 credit cards and AAA credit rating. I could walk in anywhere and get credit in 2 seconds. The problem is, don't give a 21-year-old 35 credit cards, because what ended up happening is, I was the big sport, taking my friends, doing stuff, because otherwise they couldn't do with me. They couldn't afford it. So take them out for dinner at Tavern on the Green, get like a $2,500 dinner tab or something like that. And so basically I ended up spending $150,000, even though I was making $70,000. And then I won this trip, because I was the top agent, to Marco Island, Florida. And my dad lived in Florida too. So I came down to Florida. There was a nor'easter going on in New Jersey. I was talking to some attorney that was telling me to go bankrupt because I was screwed up my credit so bad. That was bad advice too. By the way, do your own research on stuff, because it was bad advice. But still, it happened. That's another thing. Things happen to you in life. You have bad advice or you do things, you still have to take control instead of casting blame, and change it. So that's exactly what I did. I was down at Shooters in Fort Lauderdale, sipping a margarita with my dad while there was a nor'easter in New Jersey, not a care in the world, while I was going to return to New Jersey with, this thing over my head of financial blah, blah, blah. And I decided, I looked at my dad and I'm like, what the hell am I doing in New Jersey? Next pivot. Okay. You don't have to have a reason. You don't have to have a plan. Sometimes you just do it. And I went back to my $70,000 a year job, quit that job, got in my car with all my belongings that was left, and drove to Florida immediately when I got back. Yeah. Now, bad things can happen, okay? And even in that situation, bad things are happening. So you got to pivot at every possible point. I figured when I got to Florida, I would just go work at Prudential down there. But what I found out is Prudential's a pretty scummy company, and the people that work there are pretty scummy, which I already knew, which was part of the reason I was quitting. And basically, my sales manager lapsed off all my business so he could give it to another agent so he can make more commission. And I was now unhireable because apparently I screwed the company over by him lapsing all that insurance off and them losing all that money and have to pay double commissions. That's cool, because the world works in a way and the universe works in a way that there's always opportunities. And don't focus on the disasters, focus on the opportunities. And that's when I saw this ad in the paper that said, make $125,000 a year. And I went on that job interview, and I was told I'd make 20 grand a month. And it was a brand new brokerage firm with no brokers and no desks. And I believed them wholeheartedly because I was in my young 20s and I wasn't old enough to be skeptical. I wasn't old enough to have paralysis of analysis. I wasn't old enough to be anything else but naive and just simply believe. Believing in yourself and believing in your path and believing in everything is what gets you to the promised land. That doesn't mean blind faith either. It just means believing and how what your mind can believe, the mind can conceive. And that's exactly what happened. My father got very indignant with me, and why don't you get a real job and stop trying to conquer the world, and maybe you should make enough money to eat, not make $20,000 a year. I had a brother that got in a fist fight with me over it, like stop living in the dream world, why don't you get a real job, blah 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 blah. Well, I use that as fire, by the way. Use things like that as fire. There's a lot of, you talked about social media, there's a lot of negativity on social media, and there's a lot of trolls, and there's people that want to tell you shouldn't do something, can't do something, aren't capable, all these things. And don't listen to outside chatter. Listen to all your voices in your head. They may be many at times. There are for the Pipeman, but listen to them all. Okay. Forget the outside chatter, because I went in there with bankruptcy, no money, not enough to eat, no salary, no draw, no guarantee, no benefits, no nothing. And within 1 month, I was making $20,000 a month, just like they told me. 49 other brokers working in that brokerage firm were not. Why? Because I didn't listen to the outside chatter. I listened to my inside chatter, and I was going to prove these other people wrong. And that started my financial journey, where I ended up owning my own brokerage firms, owning my own insurance agency, 15 licenses, 4 professional designations, including CFP, CTA, CFS, RIA, and I managed millions of dollars of people's money. And then I had another pivot point in my life 12 years down the road that caused me to make a decision. And my decision was walking into my brokerage firm one day where I was making 150 grand a month and handing the keys to my top broker and saying, it's all yours. Pipeman, why the hell did you do that? I'll wait for you to ask that question.
Pipeman, why the hell did you do that?
Well, because I had a love-hate relationship with the business, and you have to live life to your fullest. And if you're not loving certain things, you have to change them. And basically, I love the money. I love the action. I hated everything else in that business. It's a scumbago business. It was a lot of fun, though. It saw its time. And that's when I did something based on my dad's advice.
Well, and if I may add just a quick footnote.
That was for a question too.
I think you're a creative person, and yes, you can be creative in sales and all of that, but building something like you've done with the media empire, it's different building something than just moving numbers around and trading, which often
all of them were building something. That's the point. You're right on the money, because each business I was in, I was building something. And you're building it for something more. And like, if you're not building, what are you doing? Is my point.
Well, you're an employee often.
Exactly. So now that leads, I give you a cue to your next question. Do you remember what that question should be?
Well, so this pivot that you saw after the financial plan, I suspect you saw a trend that others didn't see at the time.
Nope, it wasn't the media yet. Wasn't the media yet. That's why I said the next question would be, well, what was the advice from your dad?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. What was the advice?
And it wasn't specific advice at that given time. It's a line of his that he used to say. Couple of his lines. This one is make a decision. If it's wrong, change it. Now, this applied. That wasn't the one I was talking about, but this applied to that scenario too. Okay. I made a decision to build that business. I changed that decision. Yeah. Pivot. Okay. That's what pivot is. The other thing that he always used to say is, if 50 people tell you you're drunk, lie down. And so throughout my whole career of the financial business, I'd always been into self-help, motivational stuff. I lived it. Okay. I've gone to every seminar, read every book, all that stuff. And so when I was in the brokerage business, that's a big thing you do. So I used to do meetings, and I used to also, send all my brokers to motivational seminars. And they always used to say to me, I don't know why you send us these other seminars. Basically you're better than they are. And throughout my whole career, people were saying, you should be a motivational speaker. You should be a motivational speaker. And so 50 people told me that, and I lied down. And so I left the financial business and I pursued being a motivational speaker, coach, author, which are all things I am now. Now, both those two industries led me to where we are today. And so basically, we're probably going to have to do another part because I monopolized your show here with stories. But,
Good. Good.
The thing is that, both of those things prepared me for where I am now and gave me the vision, because I was a host. When I was in the financial business, I used to pay to have a radio show to get my leads for that business. When I was doing seminars, same thing. I promoted my motivational business. but I did see the writing on the wall. I saw the changes in media that were going to happen during the time of the beginning of technology, during the worst economy in U.S. history. I went through a whole bad scenario too. Again, a time to pivot in life. Went from making 150 grand a month to making nothing and being homeless once again. No vehicle, no money, no business, no anything. And that's where I had the idea to start Talk 4 Media radio network and to do streaming and podcasting before it was even a word. And I told people, just like Bill Gates told IBM, you're going to see people listening to radio on their in their cars, on their phones. We didn't even have smartphones yet. People thought I was nuts, just like they told Bill Gates he was nuts, and he said a personal PC in every home, and they said the mainframe would never go away. IBM is still suffering to this day because of that, and Microsoft became one of the biggest companies in the world. I saw the vision of media. I saw what we're doing right now before we were able to do this, and basically built a network based on vision of the future and a pivot, not only in myself, but a pivot in the industry, because most of the people in this industry from before that time have what I call WKRP and Cincinnati syndrome. And if you're old enough to know what that is, that's a TV show of a radio station. And these people live in that past that doesn't exist anymore. We are in the technology era. You must move on. You must pivot. You must move forward to live the life of your dreams.
Dean, we definitely need to have you back. Before we do, though, you and I were talking just before with Rebel, our producer, about kids, next generation leaders. Maybe just 2 or 3 minutes. I know that's going to be challenging for us both, but 2 to 3 minutes. What are those 3 kind of key takeaways that you would pass on to your own children? My son, Ian, my daughter, Catherine, my son's 32, my daughter is 29. That's a tough time for a lot of young people. And the housing is challenging and cost of living is rising, and a college education doesn't seem to have the same return on investment. And this idea of pivoting and following your heart. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to that next generation that might be listening?
I have a few things I would add real quickly. Number one is the fact of, you know what? We can't change the things going on. Stop worrying about the things you can't control. You can always control your attitude towards it. You can always control your actions towards it. And you know what? This is not different than any other time in history. Listen, my dad used to say, he used to get a corned beef sandwich and Dr. Brown's cream soda for a nickel. Well, you can't anymore, Dad, and you can't get $3 gas anymore. Sorry. You can't get a $500 apartment anymore. Sorry. Or a $500 car anymore. Sorry. But you can do something to pivot to still live the life of your dreams. Stop worrying about what you can't control and control what you can. And that is your attitude and what you do. Okay. And my second thing is you got to do whatever it takes. That's the bottom line. You can't sit around and complain about the things that you can't change and that you can't do. You can do anything you put your mind to. And you need to start thinking that way. And you need to pivot towards stop worrying about what's wrong in the world and what's wrong with people and start being blessed by what's right in the world and what's right with people and what's right with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So gang, I love that click and clack, the Tappet brothers. We've squandered yet another near hour together, but I think we've been enlightened by the Pipeman. I know I have. So next week's show is with my dear friend and coach, Chris Rue. He's coming back for a second episode, number 18. And the theme will be the midlife warrior. Choose reinvention. And I think our promise here is how do people in midlife act more like Dean was talking about, living in the moment, being present, being a realist, following your heart, pivoting toward the life of your dreams, and not getting stuck in your own negative self-talk, but especially the chatter of the naysayers, the trolls, and everybody else that's on social media that can keep us all stuck. So I want to, on behalf of Dean and Rebel and the entire Talk4 Media team, I hope you found value today. I know I did. Thank you for investing your valuable time. Consider reviewing if you took any notes and applying just one idea today to both deepen and accelerate your own personal or professional transformation. We are better together. So now let's regenerate.
Thank you for listening to Regenerate with Captain Dave on K4HD Radio. We invite you to give yourself grace and embrace the messy middle. See you every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Until then, you got this.